Intentamos recuperar esas palabras de Pistorius. Acaba de empezar a hablar von der Leyen. Vamos a ver si podemos escuchar a la presidenta europea.
It's a pleasure to be here with you today in the company of so many distinguished thinkers and experts. Jacques Delors famously said that no one falls in love with a single market. And at the beginning of my first mandate, I thought that that must also be true for our budget. But I must say in these years, I've learned that our budget is much more than a set of funds, programs, and rules. Because I've seen how it transforms lives and livelihoods. It brought flooded farmlands back to life. It helped save millions of jobs at the height of the pandemic. And it enabled a small startup to develop the revolutionary vaccine that saved millions of people from COVID. And this is the life-changing power of our budget. It is the engine that turns our priorities into action, and it is the backbone of our union. In the last 5 years, I must say we have constantly tested the limits of what our budget could achieve. I remember the long meetings with our services every time an emergency hit. And every time we managed to find creative ways to mobilize our financial firepower for the people and for the business of Europe. For example, during the sharp economic downturns in the pandemic, with the shutdowns, we raised money for our member states with Next Generation EU. We turned a safety buffer in the budget, the famous headroom, into a very powerful emergency tool to finance our recovery and our energy security. I would not want to dare to think about how it would have been without Next Generation EU. We used all the built-in flexibilities to respond to emergencies. If you think of the floods in Italy, the earthquake in Croatia, but also Putin's full-scale invasion and the energy blackmail we went through. So, over the past 5 years, time and again, our budget has punched above its weight. And we must also see now, today, that we have reached the limits of what is possible. Our current budget was designed for a world which no longer exists. It was the world of 2020. And think of 2020 and today. Today, geopolitical tensions are rising. We see the trade rules that are being rewritten. We see extreme weather events more and more frequent due to climate change. We see the change in technology that is faster than ever. So the new normal is anything but normal. And I'd like to set out some of the lessons we've learned from the current budget and the principles that should drive now our new budget. So let's have a look at what we learned and at the principles we want to apply. First, flexibility. Let me start with the need for a more flexible, agile, and responsive MFF. Today, you all know it, 90% of the budget is pre-allocated from the start. In other words, today we are working with a budget designed in the years 2019 and 2020. I started in 2019. Under this budget, we have worked with flexibilities worth less than 4% of the MFF. This is far too small and far too fragmented, because we simply do not know what we will be facing next. For example, think about the new technologies like artificial intelligence. when the current budget was negotiated, I remember, we thought, and this was the norm of the declarations, that artificial intelligence would only approach human reasoning round about 2050. Now, we expect this to happen already next year. So it is simply impossible to determine today where innovation will lead us by the end of the next budgetary cycle.
9:43 de la mañana, ahí está von der Leyen, también enseguida le vamos a poner a Kaja Kallas y a Pistorius. Hay mucha actividad en Europa, en Bruselas durante el día, reunión de ministros de Asuntos Exteriores, estamos viendo también la conferencia de von der Leyen sobre el presupuesto. Lo vamos a tener en nuestro canal de YouTube, en un segundo canal, por si quieren seguirlo, y por supuesto luego le contamos todos los detalles de lo que está contando y de lo que está diciendo von der Leyen en esta comparecencia.